Among the factors leading to the conviction of Abdel-Basset al-Megrahi for the bombing of Pan Am 103, arguably the most important was his identification by Maltese shopkeeper Tony Gauci. On February 15, 1991, Gauci pointed to a photo of al-Megrahi and called it similar to the buyer of a specific set of clothes and an umbrella that were found bomb-blasted near Lockerbie and believed to be from inside the primary suitcase. Gauci's recall of the items sold was enough to convince investigators his description of the buyer would lead them to the plotters. Officially, the investigation decided the purchase date was December 7, 1988, and the buyer was al-Megrahi. If this is so, however, Tony's first statements to the police in September 1989 were mistaken in quite a few ways. He was pretty sure the buyer was Libyan, well-dressed, and clean-shaven. Megrahi was, or could have been, all of those. But Megrahi's accepted height is 5 feet 8 inches tall, and he was at the time a fit 36 years old. Tony Gauci, who stood only 5'3" and was aged 44 at the time, must have misreported the man 5 inches taller than himself as at least 9 inches taller, 6 feet or more in height, as he put it. And he must have mistaken a younger man than himself for an older one, overstating the buyer's age by about 14 years, or around 50 years old, as he reported it. The Libyan in the shop was both tall and dark, as Tony described him. This artist's sketch made for Tony on September 13, 1989, shows African-looking facial features and a tight afro. And Tony's description is of a dark-complected man with, quote, very black hair. His face looks lean and intense, menacing almost. In fact, a running subtext of Tony's many talks with the Scottish police is the menace that the man and the other Libyans behind him represented. He and his family were scared, he said, and, of course, having financial troubles as well. Now here's a photo of Megrahi as he looked in mid-1987. Long ramen noodle wiggles, longer, rounder, softer face, a longer and larger nose, different eyes and eyebrows, cheeks, lips, and chin, and a different overall color. Neither of the two men looks around 50 years old, but the sketch is uncanny in its near exclusion of Megrahi. Tony also helped produce this odd-looking photo fit image the same day. It looks much different from the sketch but for the hair, and a bit less unlike Megrahi. Originally, Tony said the sketch was much closer, but both were similar to the buyer. Once Megrahi was known to him, he decided the photo fit was the better of the two. So Tony Gauci's pivotal description of the clothes buyer, Megrahi supposedly, had to have been off on height, build, age, complexion, hair, and face. Many will just remind themselves the eyewitness recall is extremely imperfect on average, and presume the Gauci identification must be good somehow. After all, the judges at Camp Zeist accepted it in convicting the Libyan. But that would be hasty. We haven't even seen all the problems yet. 3 more inconsistencies all point to the sale happening on a completely different date from that accepted. He told the police the purchase occurred just before 7 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, a few weeks before the bombing. Tony was alone in the shop when the buyer came in just before closing time, around 6:50 p.m. His brother Paul was at home watching a football game, Rome versus Dresden, at the time. And 2 Rome-Dresden matches were played on Wednesdays in the right season, November 23rd and December 7th, the 2 days to pick from. There were Christmas lights and decorations up in Salema by the latter of the two, which had gone up that year on December 6th. The following evening, apparently, according to the official story, Gauci didn't notice or didn't remember the new ambiance. The Christmas decorations were not up when the man bought the clothes, he said on September 19, 1989. And there were no Christmas decorations up, as he reaffirmed in 1990. And again, these had gone up the day before the official purchase. The night was still early winter dark without the added cheer, as he recalled. And further, it was raining moderately as the purchase happened, enough that Tony suggested a black umbrella and the buyer agreed, adding it to his purchase, and upon leaving opened it outside for the rain. The umbrella was found at Lockerbie, blast damaged like the clothing. Problem is, there was not even a trace of precipitation in Salema the whole day of December 7th, according to the weather records accepted at trial. The judges heard an expert say that a few drops were possible, despite not registering. He apparently exaggerated that possibility, and considered that enough to buy an umbrella over. These issues with rainfall and exterior lighting aren't just random, but in fact fit better with the aforementioned alternate date, November 23rd. It's well before the decorations went up, and moderate rainfall is recorded all day up to and including the hour of purchase, when 0.6 millimeters was recorded at the airport a few miles inland. And in fact, the football match evidence that gave us our 2 days also supports November 23rd. Paul's absence was explained with a football match he was watching, not one that he had watched hours earlier. The purchase he missed out on was at about 1850 local time, just minutes after the November game had ended, or 4 hours after if it was a sale on December 7th. Tony himself felt that the purchase was at the end of November, and his brother Paul initially told police, "I checked all the games and dates, and he decided that the 23rd November 1988 was the date in question." But if it were November 23rd, it couldn't possibly be Megrahi. No one contests that he was nowhere near Malta or Tony's shop on that date. That would explain why Tony almost seemed to describe a different buyer. It had to be a different buyer. The best clues point to that date, but the investigators somehow decided it was the 7th of December after all. Harry Bell, the leading Scottish police officer in the Malta probe, told the Scottish Criminal Cases Review Commission in 2006. Ultimately, it was the applicant's presence on the island on 7th December 1988 that persuaded me that the purchase took place on that date. Against the evidence.